In this video, we're going to discuss the gravity zone. So I've made myself kind of a little area here. I don't know what to call this exactly. It might be maybe the bowels of a alien ship, or it could be just part of a platformer style game. But essentially what I want to do is get up onto this platform, this ledge up here, and I'm going to use the gravity zone to lift myself up. So as I walk up to this zone, I'm going to press space, and that's going to jump, and then the gravity is going to lift me up to the ledge. And I want to keep pressing forward, because if I don't, then I won't have any momentum and I'll just go straight up in the air and then straight back down again. And I want to get to that ledge. So I'm going to keep moving forward, press jump, and then up on the ledge I go. Okay, so the gravity zone lifted me up. It can also gently lift me down. I'm just going to step off of the ledge here. And you can see that it's slowly lowering me down to the ground here. A little bit of a little sound there because it thinks I'm taking fall damage basically, but I've mitigated that, and I'll show you how I've done that in a little bit. But that's the gravity zone. It's just it was intended for kind of like an alien ship lifting you up, but you can see that it can be used for a number of different things. I like to think of it as like a platformer mechanic that I could use to do like really high jumps to get up on certain ledges. So I think there's a little bit of opportunity here, but let me show you how it works. I am going to caution you by saying that this is not going to be an easy video for me to explain. And I say that because even the guy who wrote this would tell you this is not an easy one to explain. And the reason for that is because of the way some of the code is written behind the scenes when it comes to things like gravity and how it is done in Max. It's just not a straightforward explanation. So I apologize if any of this is confusing. I'm going to do my level best to try to explain to you what each one of these parameters mean. All right, so here's the gravity zone, and you can see that there's two zones here. I'll explain why here in a moment. But for right now, we'll focus on the gravity zone. We have the gravity level. This is essentially an equation to what the gravity is in Max. So think of one as normal gravity, right? So if I were to lower that number below one, then it would lessen gravity and I'd be able to jump higher. And if I increase this number above one, then that's a stronger gravity, and I wouldn't be able to jump quite as high. So one is kind of standard gravity. Then you have fall rate. Now you saw that I fell when I came down. I fell at kind of a consistent speed that was pretty pleasing in terms of the consistency and the speed of it. Yeah, dial that in for your purposes. It kind of depends on what you're building and what feels good to you. But I went with 1,000, which is pretty fast. You know, maybe if I lowered that, it would be slower and I wouldn't take as much fall damage. I don't know. Play around with it and see what works for you. But I think that worked really well for this demonstration. Then you have the zone height. Now, in my case, I chose to make this 300. Now, zone height is zone height in every zone you've ever encountered, right? It's how high above the zone does this effect take place. And I made it 300 because here I am, several hundred units above the zone. So when I came back down, I didn't want to just plummet down to the ground. I wanted the zone to affect me even well above the zone. So that's why that's set up so high. Spawn at start's pretty obvious. If it's ticked, it'll be active when you start the level, and if it's unticked, then it'll be inactive and you have to activate the zone for it to work. Then we have the trigger type. There's a number of different options here. Basically what this means is when you reach the trigger height, in this case it's 500 units, so I would have to reach 500 units above the zone, then I could trigger something. So I could trigger, say, an event. I could trigger something that's logic linked to the zone. For example, when I reach that, maybe I want to set off a firework or something like that. I don't know. I could kill the player. Maybe when I get to a certain height, that means that I'm reaching a point at which there's no oxygen or there's a ceiling fan or something like that, and then I would die. I could lose the game instantly, or I could win the game instantly. These are just the trigger types. I didn't really need one in this case, so I chose not to use one. But like I said, if you do use the trigger type, then the trigger height tells you at what point above the zone will that trigger whatever it is that you've chosen to trigger. We have the gravity lift. Now, I'm not using any gravity lift here, but if I did, then what would happen is it would, when I walked into the zone, it would automatically lift me up. So in other words, instead of me having to jump and move forward, I would just walk into the zone. I would continue to move forward because that's still, the momentum still applies. You want to keep moving forward so that you can move out of the zone when you reach the height, but the gravity lift is going to lift you up. So let's suppose you wanted to shoot the player up in the air, then you would put a really high number here, and then that's going to lift them up very rapidly by itself without the player having to press space to jump. Then of course there are two sound slots here. There's a sound for when you're entering the zone, and then there's a sound for when you reach the height level that you've set, the trigger height. If you want to, I chose to use no sounds. It just didn't need to be there. Now, this behavior was it was originally intended, like I said, for one purpose, to lift the player up. It was never really designed to lower the player down. As you can see, it can be done. It can be used in that way, which I really like. But when I landed and I didn't have this extra zone in here, I would take a little fall damage. It wasn't much, it was usually a couple points. And so what I did is I mitigated that by adding drop zone. And so I put this zone here just to mitigate that effect, just so we weren't distracted by the blood splatter that you would normally see, and the reduction in hit points just wasn't relevant in this scenario. You still heard me kind of oof when I hit the ground. But that's it. That's the gravity zone. I think it could be kind of cool for like a platformer game, or if you have maybe a space game. I think that was what his original intention was to like lift the player into an alien spaceship. You can imagine like the tractor being coming down and pulling them up, something like that. I think it'd be pretty useful in certain scenarios. If you enjoyed the video, or if you learned anything new, please be sure to click the like button down below. If you're new here, or if you just haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you stick around. And if you'd like a notification for whenever a new video is posted, just click the bell icon and that'll let you know when a new video is ready. Thanks so much for watching all the way through. I always appreciate that, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. Hey, don't forget there's a written guide for every behavior, including ones I haven't yet covered on this channel. And if you want to learn some more, why don't you check out this video next.